Hello, and we're live.
Welcome to the Bard Book Club.
Talking about The Tempest by one William Shakespeare.
Whose birthday is today?
And his death day, R.I.P.
Oh my God, love him though. Love it. What a guy.
What a guy.
Let me spit out my gum. Yeah, it's his death day and his 457th birthday. So what up, Willie Shakes? We're gonna talk about The Tempest, one of his comedies. So yeah, Bridget, take it away. Oh wait, no, we're gonna do the sonnet thing.
Yes.
So we're gonna read a sonnet to begin his birthday party and to end his birthday party. So Bridget, do you want to read the opening sonnet and I'll read the closing sonnet? Okay.
So I'm reading sonnet 116.
Nice.
Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved.
Nice. That was fitting with The Tempest, too.
Yeah.
So what are your general thoughts on The Tempest?
I really enjoy The Tempest. I was in a production of The Tempest my freshman year, so like 2 years ago. And that was really fun. I remember not knowing anything about The Tempest, and then as the production went on, I slowly learned the plot until the end.
Yeah, it's a weird plot.
Yeah, I really like Trinculo and Stefano. I think they're really funny. I think Austin and who did it? Austin and Madison?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they did a good job with it. I thought it was really fun.
I thought they were really funny. I really like it too. I read it for the first time in college just for fun. And I really liked it a lot. And then it's probably one of my favorites we've done for this overall. I just think it's fun. I like how there's not a ton of soliloquies. It's just a lot of back and forth dialogue, which I don't feel like you get enough of in a lot of Shakespeare plays.
Yeah, especially there's one part where 6 people are talking and they're all saying
That never happens. It's always just one person talking at you. I think it's paced really well. It's not there are a lot of times we read plays and I'm like, we're gonna trim this down. Even the comedies, and I felt like this one is a really good pace. I feel like all the characters, I like that it doesn't have a ton of characters like most of his plays. It just has the one group in the one isolated setting, and it almost feels like a sitcom. They're just, the place is the island. Here's the cast of characters.
Here's plot A, B, and C.
Yeah, here's how they wrap up. Here's the wacky hijinks, and it's also there's that saying that's Shakespeare plays either end in a funeral or a wedding, and this is one of the few that doesn't. It's alluded Miranda and Francisco are gonna get married eventually, but that's not how this ends. And so I thought that was really interesting. I think Prospero is a really interesting lead who's very different from most Shakespeare leads. Also, comedies are usually really big ensembles for him, whereas this is Prospero is the lead, and David was perfect as Prospero. Loved the costume.
It was great.
Yeah. And I love that it's there's Prospero, and then there's the Miranda and Ariel who are and what's the slave's name that matters? Caliban. How they're then they're the secondary, and then everyone else is the ensemble. I thought it was a very interesting character setup for a Shakespeare play. So I just really liked it because it's just feels very unique to a lot of his work, especially his comedies.
Yeah, it stands out, and it also just has a different vibe. I feel to a lot of the comedies, a lot of the comedies is very romance focused, versus this was we're on an island, and
a lot of the comedies follow a formula that's very much it still feel like a sitcom. He basically invented the sitcom formula, but very much a Friends episode. Everything's the groups and the pairings, and it's a lot of miscommunication, straight people miscommunicating, whereas this didn't rely on any obviously these weren't tropes yet, because Shakespeare essentially invented a lot of the tropes we know, but obviously when you read stuff now it's going to feel tropey because you've seen it so many times, and so it's fun to read this one, which is so again, like different, because like the comedies we've read are like Taming of the Shrew and Midsummer Night's Dream, and it's like those are very different stories, but they still have like the same vibe of like, here's the group getting together and things aren't quite working out, and
and this is also like there's like a bit of mystery in the sense that like they don't really know what's happening on the island, and like the audience knows more than the people and stuff.
Yeah, I really like the magic in this too. Which again, like whenever there's like the only other one we've read that had like magic in it was like Midsummer Night's Dream, and that's like fairy magic. I thought the
magic of the bicycle.
I thought like the ancient island magic in this was very interesting. I loved Ariel. Like I was excited to play them, and it's such an interesting character that again obviously inspired lots of stuff, and that's just what's cool too. Like I know we're gonna get to the movie, but you can literally just see where different stuff was picked from this. It's another one where like we talked about in Midsummer Night's Dream, how like there's so many famous lines that are from Tempest, like hell is empty and all the devils are here. What's past is prologue, all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting to then get to, because I didn't remember like those lines being from this since I hadn't read it in several years, and it's always fun when you read the context of the famous lines.
You're like, there it is.
There it is. There's the one.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about characters? We kind of talked about them a little bit, but
I read some about Ariel because the first time I read it, I definitely just didn't register that Ariel was a guy, because I knew that the Disney movie, I don't remember how I learned, but I always knew that they got the name from this play. And I never knew what this play was about. And then I read it in college, and so I had that in my head. So I definitely like was not registering that Ariel was a guy. And then I looked up stuff that different things said that lots of plays have chosen to have a woman play Ariel, and basically people have argued that like, yes, he uses like male pronouns for Ariel, but because Ariel, they make a point of saying, is not human, it's kind of like like Kaz in Supernatural is technically not a man because he's in a vessel. So it's like Ariel is this like is like this wild spirit that is in this human looking vessel and can clearly like shapeshift and stuff. So a lot of I read this one article that was basically saying like they read Ariel as like non-binary or like not having a gender, and so then like obviously Shakespeare plays anyone of any gender can play the roles, but
that messes with like the dynamics and everything.
Yeah, but it definitely and I remember texting you this, that then having like David, who is non-binary, play Prospero, and then me, a queer woman, play Ariel, and then David and I accidentally played it like weirdly romantic, which we weren't trying to do. And then when I watched it back, it was like, yeah, we're giving some weird deliveries here for that. Like when Ariel's like, do you love me? Like,
well, in our version we had two guys play them. And they also kind of did like romantic and everything. Like they were like close to each other and everything.
It's almost like a weird twist on like the Beauty and the Beast trope, because even though like Ariel is technically like the otherworldly creature, but there's a lot of parts like that. Like if you saw them now, your outlook would change. Dost thou think so, spirit? I would, sir, if I were human. Like you kind of see the whole like Ariel almost desperately wishes they understood human emotions and things like that.
Yeah, and I think Ariel's also like very innocent in that sense, where like they don't know.
They were my favorite. That's why I was very much like, when we do this, I want to play Ariel, because I think they're really interesting. And yeah, I think they're one of those characters that clearly, again, went on to inspire other characters like that, the otherworldly character. I liked Prosper a lot and how David played them, because it was just so funny. Like, because like Prosper was doing all this really sinister stuff, and David was playing it all like slapstick comedy, which was really funny.
Yeah.
What about you? What were your thoughts on Caliban? Because I wrote notes down about that.
Yeah, it was interesting because it's done differently the two times I've seen it. We had this one guy play Caliban. He did this really crazy voice. His voice was like so deep, and every time I heard him, it was so funny. And I really also liked how Maddie did it as well. She did it
was so funny with her like goblin voice that she did the whole time. Like, damn.
Yeah, both versions are like really fun. And I like it's a weird relation. I mean, you're like obviously probably being pretty racist here with that character, but
at the time.
Both times I've seen it, it hasn't been like color playing that. You know,
Maddie pointed that out, that it would have been racist of us to have someone else play Caliban just because that's how he did it at the time. Because again, like it doesn't have to be that way. Like it's
like a weird choice. Yeah.
The ending is still kind of like clear that Shakespeare was like, slavery's fine, because like Caliban like isn't freed in the end, which isn't okay. Well, like, and also
there,
I was like reading through stuff that was like, obviously if you just look at this play cut and dry, it can come out really racist and sexist.
Yeah, it just depends on how you do it.
Yeah, it's like how you talked about Taming of the Shrew. Like if you choose to cast this and direct it differently, it's not going to feel that way. So like, you know, obviously our casts are almost always like literally primarily women and non-binary actors. Like I think Simon and Austin are the only men who were in the past few readings we've done. So having like mostly women and non-binary people play the characters kind of like erases the sexism, because, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it kind of like, that also was kind of what happened in my production at school. Like there were like 3 guys, and like one of them was Caliban, one of them was Prospero, and one of them was Ariel. And they all did a phenomenal job. It was great. But then that also like makes it interesting with all the other characters. It was funny. I remember 2 of them, I think, who played like Alonzo and one of the other people in that group. They were like, yeah, so our characters are in love. This is how.
Yeah, it's definitely like as soon as like you and I were talking about that when we were texting the other day, I like wanted to go write like Jim. So this I was looking through because I read like the essays in the back of this edition. So this essay was called "The Miranda Trap" by Lori Jarrell Leninger, and it's called "The Miranda Trap: Sexism and Racism in Shakespeare's The Tempest." And she addressed how like if you don't add nuance, this play is gonna read really fucked up. So she says, even though Miranda occupies a place next to Prospero in the play's hierarchy and appears to enjoy all of the benefits which Caliban at the base of that hierarchy is denied, she herself might prove a victim of the play's hierarchical values if like you don't try to do it differently, and said Caliban, the opposite pole, is presented as the reviled offspring of a witch, and the devil as physically ugly, as racially vile, intrinsically uneducable, uncontrollably lustful, rebellious, and being defined as a slave by nature, as justly enslaved. So like to like Caliban is supposed to just be like the devil incarnate is one thing, but obviously Shakespeare chose to like first of all, it definitely was blackface when they did this back then. There's no way they didn't do that. Like obviously you don't have proof, but I don't see how the fuck else they did that if they went to such great extents to be like, this is an island person. Which falls into that like birth of a nation trope where like, because Prospero like cites, oh, you tried to like take advantage of my daughter, but because we had a woman, Maddie, play Caliban, I feel like that just kind of made the joke of like Prospero's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like David played this in a way of like Prospero's paranoid as fuck now and thinks everyone's out to get him, and everyone else is like, can you calm the fuck down?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that serious. Like,
I think also it's interesting, since I was playing Miranda, to think about her role in the story, just because she is the only like specified female character.
Yeah, that was written to be a girl at the time.
Yeah, and you'd think because she is like a central figure in the play that like she would talk as much as the other people. But like she did not talk. She was like there sometimes, and like sometimes I'd just be like, and I am also here.
And a lot of like Miranda was there, and like
I was fine with it. It was just like weird because I was just like, interesting how Shakespeare chose to do this.
I do
considering he's had such other female characters.
It was interesting though, because like a lot of times his women get killed or get vilified.
I didn't die, so
yeah. So there's that. I mean, also
a little rough because I was the only woman.
in his time, like obviously too, like I can see why he'd write why anyone would write predominantly male plays since there weren't women actors.
There were mainly male actors, yeah.
Not only, like, because like drag was always accepted in the theater, but if you're writing, it's gonna just be easier if you're writing.
It's like, well, I'll just write a bunch of men.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Do you want to talk about any other characters, or do you want to move on to plot?
I guess we could talk about Stefano and Trinculo. I think they're very fun. They're just kind of like some of my favorite characters. They just kind of remind me of Falstaff in the sense that like they're just like silly and fun, and they're like the real comedic relief of the play.
Even though I hate the Henry plays, Falstaff is probably just one of my favorite Shakespeare characters. They're so fun. And these definitely have the same vibe. Like Madison with like the Mountain Dew bottle being which one? She was Stefano, and just the scene where like Austin's like Stefano, and she's like mercy,
and stuff, and then like when they meet Caliban and they're putting all the clothes on him, and like they're just like throwing all this stuff around, like they find all this jewels and they're like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's really funny. Again,
it's just like really ridiculous, which is fun.
Simon said who played Trinculio. That was Maggie, I believe, played Trinculio.
No.
I no longer have the cast list in front of me.
No, Stefano and Trinculo. So Austin and
Madison was Trinculio.
Madison. Yeah.
Or no, sorry. Austin was Trinculio and Madison was Stefano.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was a good time, and also like I liked Austin's costume. It was fun.
Yeah, with the Hawaiian shirt
and everything. That was good.
Yeah.
And like the sunglasses, a good touch.
Oh, I remember the other like racist line in the play because Michelle looked directly at camera when it was said, because it was like Simon's line where it was like, "It's better this than lose your daughter to an African," and I remember Michelle looked right at the computer, like she looked away to check the script, and then she was like, what the fuck? Like, it's obviously those annoying racist lines and stuff that will date your plays and be like, dude, you didn't have to be like that.
You were doing so well too.
Yeah, like obviously, like, because we read these cold, like these aren't rehearsed, so we forget to look through lines. Like I remember one time we were gonna read one that had, there's that word that sounds a lot like the N word, but isn't.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember that word was in it. And I was like, no one say that because it's going to sound too much like something else. And so I like, when we were reading this, I totally missed that. And then we were reading it and I was like, dude, no. Yeah. So that's why, but because of, I think that shows though, how good Shakespeare's writing is, though, that he wrote these stories that then hundreds of years from now, anyone of any gender and orientation can step in and play them. And each time
that's like really cool.
It just brings out a different layer of the story. It doesn't like, you're not like, oh my God, we didn't have a guy playing Ariel, so now it's not good.
It's messed up. You can't do it.
It's over. Like,
yeah, and I think that I agree that I think the fact that like you just need the words and like each of the characters is like really powerful. And I think it was really cool that we had like such a big cast for this because
had to double up. Like everyone was essentially just one person.
Yeah, which was really fun.
Do you want to talk about plot?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Do you want to go? Or?
Yeah. Okay. So I was again looking in the back of the book, and it says, I thought this was really interesting. It says, there is no known source of the plot of The Tempest. As far as we know, The Tempest and Love, Labour's Lost are Shakespeare's two original plots, because apparently all of his other plots were like inspired by legends or urban legends, or in the case of The Taming of the Shrew, he just copied somebody. And so
seems like he could have done that for several things. That's fine.
Yeah, probably. And so these are the only two that are.
That's pretty cool. Good for him. He came up with something new.
And so then apparently also. Cymbeline, this and The Winter's Tale were some of his last plays, and they were seen as like him trying to retell the same story over and over and get it right. So it was like The Winter's Tale, then Cymbeline, then this, and it was, because if you look back at them, they have
those other two aren't as good.
Well, and so basically what critics thought was that The Tempest was that he finally nailed down the story he was trying, and Pericles, those three, is that he basically, and you can see that like we haven't read Cymbeline yet. I saw it a lot of years ago. I barely remember it, but especially with Pericles and A Winter's Tale, you can see what he took from those. And
the fact that like we confused the two, that I feel like that shows how similar they are.
Yeah, whereas like we would never confuse The Tempest with those. So I thought that was really interesting about the plot. I also just wrote, it was first performed before King James I at Whitehall on November of 1611.
Fun.
According to Samuel Taylor Coleridge, about why the plot of The Tempest was so much better than The Winter's Tale was, according to his scheme, he did not appeal to any sensuous impression of time and place, but to imagination. And so, like, he never dates where this is. And he never even like clarifies if this is like a tropical type of island or if it's more like in England, how like England's technically an island, if it's like a Moorish island. It's all just to like your imagination of what it means to be on this like really mystical enchanted island. He said, this is particularly to be noted in the first scene. A storm and its confusion on board the king's ship. The highest and the lowest characters are brought together. Much of the genius of Shakespeare is displayed in these happy combinations. The highest and the lowest, the gayest and the saddest. He is not droll in one scene and melancholy in another, but often both, and one and the other in the same scene. And so basically this whole essay by Samuel Taylor Coleridge is like, The Tempest is one of his most brilliant comedies because it doesn't flip-flop between.
Yeah, there's no like really sad moments. It's just like kind of all of it is like both sad and happy at the same time.
Yeah, so like, you know, when like Ariel is saying to Prospero, like, well, if you saw them now, you would feel differently. And he's like, are you sure? But it's still like they were just being funny like seconds before in that scene.
Yeah. And I think that's also good because like it does reflect life. Like life doesn't just have sad moments and happy moments. Like
it's not like perfectly categorized. Whereas like, yeah, because like I feel like, you know, with like Twelfth Night, it definitely would be like, here are the serious moments, here are the funny moments, and the same with like Pericles, Tale, Taming of the Shrew.
You could like point them out, and you can be like, okay, so these ones were going to be like really fun, and then in these ones we're going to be a little more serious.
Like this it was more like almost like the invention of like doing dark comedy, like joking about like really fucked up things happening.
Yeah.
And so, like, I thought the ending was a little weird how it like ends with Prospero directly addressing the audience when that had never been done. And he's like, release me from this story. And I'm like, you never set up though that you were in a story, but okay. Like,
I really like that end just because I remember seeing it done for our play, and it was just really powerful because it was like him and Ariel on stage, and like it was kind of like this release of them because like they had like this bond throughout the play, and he finally frees Ariel, and it's like they're not gonna see each other anymore and everything. It's like this really like sad moment, you know, and it's like,
do you think he loves Ariel? Do you think Prospero loves Ariel? Because
in his own way.
When he says, dost thou love me, master? He says, my dear sweet Ariel, do not come until I call thee. Like,
yeah, I think, I don't know if we would understand it that way, but I think like in his own way, I think he does.
Yeah, I always wonder too, like, obviously it's like, oh, Ariel's power is like bound to him, but I feel like to some extent, like Ariel is clearly so much more powerful than Prospero that it's like, like again, it gives me like the Beauty and the Beast vibes of like Ariel could have left, and you know, like is to keep helping him kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think I feel like he must have been like limited in some way.
Yeah.
And like kind of grew to love Prospero.
Yeah. I think he also,
because like he is obviously under his control considering he like did the storm and everything.
I think Ariel also was trying to understand humanity through Prospero, which is why he was like trying to learn human emotion through Prospero, and that's why Ariel was like limited, because Prospero is not a very emotional person or a very compassionate person. I definitely thought I really liked how Prospero just like forgot they were all trying to kill him at one point and was like, "Oh right, let's get back to that." Like it was
it's kind of fun because it's like, you know, like you kind of get off on a tangent and then you're like, that other plot that's happening.
Yeah, that was funny. And I felt like you know, the ABC plots, like they didn't feel too convoluted. And I feel like sometimes in the comedies, it's like I think Midsummer Night's Dream, the plots get really off the rails at the like in the third, fourth act, and the same with like Taming of the Shrew. Like they're funny, but it's like the middle of the play, you're like, get on track again. And obviously Pericles and Winter's Tale are just fucking bad. But this again, like it's really succinct. Everything really fits together really well in the end.
I mean, like even with like not the comedies, but like with like Henry IV, part 2 and stuff, where like they go to like the tavern and like Falstaff is there and like you love Falstaff, but you're like, what the heck is happening at this point? Like I don't.
How like Taming the Shrew has that setup with that guy and then never addressed again. You know what I'm talking about? Like
the very start, where just like like, they just never like they set up the framing device and they never follow through.
And they never close out with the framing device. Like you're just like
you can figure out what to do with that when you're performing.
You know, you're fine.
Because I know like some plays they do it where like.
No, some play the production I saw did go back to the framing device, but the fact that it's not written into the text to have a framing.
Yeah, like, I just deleted it. I was like, we don't need that.
You're like, let's get that out of here. I remember yours didn't do it because it's fucking stupid. That's why.
It is dumb. Yeah, like what? And also it's just like a lot, and it's like you can just delete that. You want it to be shorter.
What are your thoughts on the themes of this play?
I feel like there's this theme of like isolation, considering they're all like on this island and everything, and then also kind of like what we talked about before with like the Ariel and Prospero bond. Like, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. But like,
yeah, I do think
that concept of like exploring what it means to love something.
I also think I don't know how to phrase it, like the theme of understanding like what is humanity and what makes someone human, because obviously Prospero has been dehumanized by all the people, you know, that are like on the ship, and the king, and in return he has dehumanized Ariel, who is literally not a human, and then Caliban he has also dehumanized, and you know, it's like Ariel wants to be human because he thinks that will make Prospero love him, them, her, whatever, love them back. And, you know, but what does Prospero know about love? Like, Prospero loves Miranda, but then, you know, Miranda and Francisco, they fall in love immediately. And, like the theme of what is humanity? What is it to love? What does it mean? Compassion, like.
Yeah, and I also think with Prospero and, like, the hierarchy on the island, like, the idea of, like, power and, like, obedience and disobedience, and kind of
like who deserves power, who's entitled to power. Because when Caliban says he has cheated me of the island, Ariel says thou liest. And like Ariel doesn't need to say that. Like Ariel could argue that they were cheated of the island, and the idea that Caliban thinks I was here first, so I should have it, which is a logical explanation. Whereas like Ariel and Prospero think, well, Prospero is more fit to lead, since he should have it. And you know, it's like I'm not going to say which one I think is like. I think Caliban's right, but you can like see the argument of why someone would think, well, this person's better at leading, so it should be that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think also like the idea, along with like the love idea, this idea of like admiring someone, because there is that like admiration between like Prospero and Ariel, and then also like with Miranda and Francisco, like how they just immediately fall in love, and like the wonder that she feels. She's like, you're the first man I've ever met. Like I've never seen another man before. Yeah. Like kind of that idea of like newness and like wonder at the world.
And it's like not knowing anything else. So like you're not sure if you know better. Like Ariel obviously doesn't really know
innocence in that sense, yeah,
like Ariel doesn't really know anything other than Prospero, and Caliban doesn't really know anything of humanity other than, well, that's the thing too, is it also shows like you start to believe what you're taught to believe. So like Caliban grew up being a slave, so when he sees Stefano and Trinculio, theoretically he could just try to fight them and overtake them and try to convince them that he runs this island, blah, blah, blah. But instead he immediately like grovels to them and is like, I'll serve you. And it's like it doesn't even matter to him to think of himself as someone who can have
he's
power.
Conditioned.
Yeah, like he keeps saying, oh, he cheated me of the island, but it's like, then why aren't you trying to take it back, theoretically? Like, and so, whereas then like Prospero is trying to like get revenge on the people from the Yeah, whereas they're just vibing.
And I think that also has to do with like vengeance and everything. I feel like that could be also a theme.
Oh yeah, vengeance is a big theme. Well, and again, it's interesting that like obviously Prospero's trying to get vengeance and Caliban is trying to get vengeance, but Ariel isn't. And again, Ariel is the only one who's not human, so it would make sense for Ariel to want vengeance and to like, you know, smite down these humans and just see them as lesser than them. but they're the only one who's not seeking vengeance and tries to talk Prospero out of vengeance and tells Caliban that like vengeance is wrong. And I just think that's interesting. It's like, what makes man a monster, like kind of thing.
Yeah.
You want to talk about fun dialogue? Because I marked a lot.
Yeah.
We said the two really famous ones past his prologue and
Hell's Empty and All the Devils Are Here. Some good ones.
Yeah. What are some other ones you marked down?
Let me see. One sec.
Oh, I really like where Miranda says, "Your tale, sir, would cure deafness," because it can be played like really innocent or really smart alecky, like your tale could cure deafness.
We are the stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep.
I love that line.
Me, poor man, my library was dukedom large enough. Same.
Where Miranda says, "I might call him a thing divine, for nothing natural I ever saw so noble."
Oh, wonder how many goodly creatures are there here. Oh, how beauteous mankind is. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it.
Oh, yeah, that's also where the title of the book, Brave New World, came from.
Yeah.
I highlighted, "It is foul weather in us all, good sir, when you are cloudy." And that made me just get the vibes of like fair is foul and foul is fair. Hovers your fog in misty air. Like I think Shakespeare's really good at like the pathetic fallacy where the weather matches what's going on in the story. And so the way that like the Tempest, obviously like the inciting incident is a literal tempest, but then obviously causes like the tempest of emotions and everyone's like at each other's throats kind of thing.
Yeah.
I highlighted where Miranda says, "Do you love me? Oh, heaven, oh, earth, bear witness to this sound, and crown what I profess with kind event. If I speak true, if hollowly invert what best is boded me to mischief, I beyond all limit of what in the world do love, prize, and honor you." I like that it says he honors her, like,
Yeah. Thought is free. It reminded me of Google is free.
Oh, yeah, Google is free.
Let us not burden our remembrance with a heaviness that's gone. And then, like, I would not wish any companion in the world but you.
Oh, yeah, that's so cute. Yeah, we are stuff that dreams were made on. That always just also made me think of, like, the Lizzie McGuire song. It's like, hey, now, this is what this is what I was talking about. That if you now beheld them, your affections would become tender. Dost thou think so, spirit? Mine would, sir, if I were human. I highlighted a few more. Oh yeah, the "Oh Brave New World" one. And I do really like even though it's a little weird, I do like the actual text of the ending. And so I like where Prospero says, "Now my charms are all overthrown, and what strength I have's mine own, which is most faint." So it's like without his magic, what even was he? Like he was relying on that to make him.
Yeah. And I think that's very powerful.
I do too. It's interesting.
Do we want to talk about the movie?
I really do, actually. So we discussed, we watched The Little Mermaid, which is loosely inspired by this, obviously with the name.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me pull up the article of it, which gave me the idea. Because I remember when I read this and I was like, I wonder if that's why they named her Ariel. And I looked it up and it was why they named her Ariel. And there was other actually choices that Disney took from this. So in the original here's the article. It's from the Brunette Girl on WordPress. And she wrote this a few years ago. And it's called The Blurred Lines Between Disney and Shakespeare. I can link it in the comments.
Yeah, do you want to share it?
Yeah, let me.
Or like share it on your screen?
Well, I'm looking on my. Hold on. Yeah. Let me pull it up on here.
Okay.
Hold on. It's interesting. It's just like a little blog post, and so I looked into it more after I read it a few years ago. But I remember when I read this, I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And then I looked up more stuff about it. Okay, share. share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Share the whole thing. Share. Are we seeing my screen?
Yes, I just need to add a screen. There it is.
Okay, so this is her thing, the blurred lines between Disney and Shakespeare. So she says there are suggestive parallels right here in the second paragraph between Shakespeare's The Tempest and Disney's Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid encourages identifying the similarities of not only the theme, but also the characters and setting between the two, starting with the distinction of naming its heroine, Ariel. In The Tempest, Ariel is a magical spirit, an almost fantasy-like character which coincides with
Popular tonight.
I know. Both settings are based on either an island or the ocean, both of which can be seen as escapism from reality. The idea behind both stories is fantasy, illusion, manipulation, power, and magic, which works well when identifying the idea behind Shakespeare's world. He uses the contradictory worlds of illusion and reality to depict the idea that not everything is what it seems, which is misleading to the characters. Truth versus reality is made abundant through the illusions of Prospero and the reality of the island, which he merges, such as Little Mermaid. Which then obviously, how do I stop sharing? Oh, there. Okay. So I didn't save all the articles, but some other ones I read through that talked about it were in the original Little Mermaid, it does not begin with a storm. There is no storm. So having the storm in which she rescues the prince.
Yeah, that mirrors the storm at the start of The Tempest, yeah.
Disney did choose to do that. The idea of in the Little Mermaid, in the original story, she doesn't fall in love with him at first sight. She actually goes and like watches him play and do stuff multiple times. So the idea of her falling in love with him immediately
with Miranda.
And again, the idea they took a lot of Ursula's magic from how Prospero's magic worked, and so the idea and how Ariel could make themselves look like anything Prospero commanded themselves to look like. That's why Ursula then they decided could change her appearance to look like the siren Vanessa in the end. And the way that music is so prominent in The Tempest is what inspired the idea that their idea that Ariel's voice would be so significant, because obviously like Ariel loses her voice in the original story, but the idea of her singing voice being so specifically important to the plot came from the idea of Ariel's music being what can lure people and confuse people like a magic spell. So then Ursula also using Ariel's voice literally as a magic spell. But yeah, if you guys just Google The Little Mermaid and The Tempest, there's a lot of really interesting stuff about people analyzing the similarities, because obviously it started with, her name is also Ariel, and that's I know Ariel Bissett from BookTube is literally named Ariel after The Little Mermaid, which when we were trying to pick something, I was like, oh, we gotta do this. And rewatching it again as an adult, it definitely was way shorter than I remember it feeling like it was.
It's less than an hour and a half, isn't it? It's like hour 20 minutes.
Yeah, you were like, wow, I remember at one point I was like, wow, we're already halfway through, and you were like, and the songs have been one banger after another.
All of them hit.
I definitely feel like Sebastian and Flounder like felt like all of the Mariners together, like Stefano and Trinculio. Obviously, there's no like real Caliban character in The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, I guess you could say like the cook. Yeah,
it's like obviously it's not a direct adaptation; it's just inspired by different elements. Yeah. But I almost think sometimes I find it a little more interesting when we watch the things that are loosely inspired, because then you see how Shakespeare stories would continue to endure into modern. That was made in like 80s.
And like how like the parallels can be found, and
how you can continue to use them, because that came out in the 80s. Also, another thing is obviously Shakespeare was queer, and he was bisexual, is most people's speculations. He was bisexual, if not just gay. And Howard Ashman, who wrote The Little Mermaid, was a gay man, and he was dying of AIDS when he did Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. He never lived to see Beauty and the Beast come out. He had, it really is. They had finished it. It just hadn't come out yet. He had started to work on Aladdin and then died before Beauty and the Beast came out, and he wasn't able to finish it. And so he, and then also Hans Christian Andersen was a bisexual man. So he, a lot of scholars have theorized he wrote The Little Mermaid, because like it's a literary fairy tale. It's not like this legend. He came up with the idea. Obviously, he was inspired by siren myths, but he made it up. And they were like, so a lot of people have read The Little Mermaid as like a coming out story, and the idea of the original Little Mermaid ends with she can't bear to kill him and get her soul back because he does fall in love with someone else. So she lets herself be turned to sea foam, but then the angels come and say, like, you understand what it is to love, so you get to have a soul and go to heaven. And people have read into the idea of, like, for most of history, gay people were told, like, you go to hell, you don't have a soul. And the idea was that, like, who knows how to love better than people who were told their love is a sin and were brave enough to love anyway. And then what is it to love in the Tempest? And obviously it was written that Prospero and Ariel were identified as men, and Shakespeare was probably gay. And then a gay man wrote The Little Mermaid and took heavy influences from the Tempest, based it on a story a gay man wrote. And so I just think all those like parallels together of like the queer undertones that keep enduring in this story and all its different iterations is really, really fascinating. Thank you for coming my Thank you so much. Yeah, I was very excited to like bring this up when I was like, I felt like that. It's like I've connected the dots. I was like,
you haven't connected shit.
I was like, look at all the gay stuff. Love it when we can make it gay. What do you want to say about the movie?
Yeah, I mean, all those things you said. It's pretty cool.
What's your favorite song? Mine's Poor Unfortunate Souls. I really love that
Yeah, song. I mean, I feel like I gotta choose that one too. It's so good.
I love,
I also just love Under the Sea. It's a classic. I mean, like, they're all good.
All the lines that go over your head from the men up there don't like a lot of blabber. They think a girl who gossips is a bore. Yes, only it's preferred for ladies not to say a word. Which
is also funny because, like, she doesn't say things for the longest time, and he's just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I what did I say when we were watching it? I was like, why is he obsessed with finding this other girl?
She's right there.
And then I was like, she doesn't even talk. Isn't that most men's dreams? like you think most men would be like, don't. I remember
it's like he saw her.
I was like, he is so dumb. Like, I kept saying that the whole time. It's like, well, and I also said, like, clearly she knows how to read and write because she signed the contract. And I was like, would you write shit down already?
Hey, I'm Ariel. How's it going? I sang that song to you.
Well, because, like, they make it clear in the original story that, like, they obviously don't have, like, the written word and stuff under the sea. So she obviously can't do that when she gets
in this new version. She's got a contract.
Like, bitch, do something, my goodness. Another fun thing about the movie, I told you this while we were watching it, is they were originally going to animate her as blonde. But then when they were drawing like under the water scenes, they didn't think it stood out enough. And they didn't think Brown stood out enough either. And they were like, oh, what if we made her a redhead? And then, besides Merida, she's the only redheaded princess. And I think that's
she's fun.
I also just think, like, I was very obsessed with her as a little kid.
Yeah, she's great.
We were talking about, like, I hate the stupid, like, feminist thing. We were like, she gave up her voice for a man. And when they showed her in her trope, you were like, look at this. She's clearly been doing this for a while. Like,
she had all that stuff. It's like she's
an anthropologist. Like, she
had all that. She was, like, really invested. She was, like, staring off. Like, she had cultivated her collection.
She had categorized it. She had Gasmos and Gidgets aplenty. She knew
where everything was. She had this big setup.
Bobs, she's got 20.
And then she saw this man, and she was like, you know what? I'm gonna commit. I'm gonna do it.
That was the tipping point. Well, I don't think she had literally seen humans until then. She just knew what they were.
She was like, there are people up there.
And then she saw them and she was like, this is lit. This is what's up.
Like, this guy, he's kind of cute though.
Well, and also just my mom loved The Little Mermaid when we were kids because of all the, like, that's a painting of Mary Magdalene that she looks at and says, what's a fire and why does it burn? And mermaids have often been used as, like, a symbol for, like, the fertility goddesses. And then when, like, Mary Magdalene's lost gospels were found, like, they equated her with, like, mermaid imagery and stuff. So my mom, like, like, who was, like, the reborn, like, feminist Catholic, like, when we were kids and we would watch that, I remember she'd always be like, do you see that painting? Do you see that painting? She's she'd be like, that's Mary Magdalene. And so, like, but also, like, she she wanted knowledge, and even though like in the Tempest, Miranda's not like searching for all kinds of knowledge, she still wants to understand the world. You know, and Miranda's like, you know, I want to know what else is out there. And
and they play chess, which is the most.
Yeah, that requires a lot of thinking.
Hardest game, yeah.
When Ariel says, like, you know, ask him my questions and get some answers. Like, it's not just, oh, I want a man. And with Miranda, it's also not just, oh, I've fallen in love with this man I met. It's like, again, meeting Francis.
This whole new set of things.
Yeah, it's like the tipping point of like, oh, right, there's a whole world out there that I can learn.
She kind of mentions that before.
Yeah, that she wants to know the world.
Yeah.
It also gives me like the same, again, like another island movie is like Tarzan with the like, you know, like Strangers Like Me song, like, I wanna know, can you show me?
Exactly. Yeah, where it's like there's more to explore, and like then they find someone to help them.
Barbie the Island Princess has very similar vibes. I was actually thinking that while I was reading. I was like, because I had just watched that with Mar, and I was like, and I had never seen that one growing up, and I was like
the parallels.
I was like, did the people at Mattel read The Tempest? And we're like, guys, I got an idea. What if we did this? Like, people would love it. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
I don't think so.
I'd give it an A+. I really like this play.
Yeah, I think it's well paced. It's got good characters.
Do you have anything you want to say about our man Shakespeare? We've been doing this for you.
Yeah, he was pretty cool. He did some good stuff.
He was smart.
Yeah, pretty smart.
Okay, I'll read the sonnet I picked, and then we'll talk about what we're doing next month.
Yeah. Wait, do you want to talk about what we're doing next month and then read the sonnet, and like that would be lovely?
Okay, good idea. So next month we will be reading As You Like It. Our live show will be on
something neither of us has read before.
Yeah, so that's exciting. Our live show will be on the 14th. At 9 p.m. EST on this channel. Movie night will be the following night. We have not decided what we're watching yet. It will be on our Twitter later tonight at Bar. So we haven't picked it yet, but we'll let you know. And then the live discussion will be on the 28th at 8 p.m. EST on this channel. Again, for all the updates on what's going on, what we're doing, follow us at bard_book on Twitter and Instagram. And that's where we keep everything up to date. What plays we're doing, what the adaptations are, when movie night is, all that good stuff. So now I will read the sonnet.
Yeah.
It goes out Shakespeare's birthday. I picked sonnet 26. Lord of my love, to whom in vassalage thy merit hath my duty strongly knit, to thee I send this written embassage, to witness duty, not to show my wit. Duty so great, which wit so poor as mine, may make seem bare and wanting words to show it. With that I hope some good conceit of thine, in thy soul's thought, all naked, will bestow it. Till whatsoever star that guides my moving points on me graciously with fair aspect, and puts apparel on my tattered loving, to show me worthy of thy respect. Then may I dare to boast how I do love thee, till then not show my head where thou mayst prove me. I just thought that was a really beautiful one. I told Bridget before this, I looked up what were considered his gayest sonnet, and and picked that one. I liked yours a lot, that it had Tempest in it. Really you thinking the thoughts. So
yeah.
So I think that's all we have for this evening.
Yes, thank you for joining us to talk about the Tempest.
And to celebrate Shakespeare's birthday, have a drink.
Happy birthday, Shakespeare.
Happy birthday, and we'll see everybody next month.
Bye.